Well, good morning, fellow humans. It's been a while since we've spoken. It's been pretty busy. However long it's been, I think it hasn't quite been a month, but that's okay. I want to keep you guys guessing anyway, guys. I mean, I'm talking to myself really, but that's fine. I want to. I'm not ready to set a pattern of these communications of this communion, so you get what you get at this point. Because I mean, at the end of the day, the reality is that this kind of my project that I'm working on here has numerous, I guess you could say, buckets, and so this is something that I'm trying to develop. So it's going to take you gotta learn how to fly before you can fight, right? So that's kind of what I'm trying to trying to do here. Since we talked last, I've had two really good experience. Yes, I've had two meaningful experiences in engaging in different subcultures. I live in the Chicagoland area, as I think I've alluded to before. That's about as granular as you're going to get right now, especially these days. So anyway, I've been, experiencing different reactions to the current execution of our enemy's plan, and a lot of things that are very predictable if you understand kind of the fascist playbook, if you understand the goal, if you are critically minded, and especially in the case of my worldview, if you are informed. I've been I don't think I've ever been afforded the comfort of thinking that the Wizard of Oz was anything more than it ever was. Meaning that I can't. My worldview is informed by the reality that I was behind the scenes, behind the curtains of the Wizard since before I was before I was conscious. Certainly before I was self-aware or able to communicate, whatever. Point is that if you study, and I'm not talking about LARPing, conspiracy theory, whatever. If you're actually an objective seeker of information and truth, and you're a student of history, and in my case, a student of human combative behavior, the playbook that's going on right now is not original. We'll just put it that way. In fact, it's been refined numerous times, and especially in the U.S., this is a refinement. We'll just put it this way. And this refinement kind of is just like the Civil War, where the leadership that wound up leading the rebellion, the armed rebellion against the Constitution, just like in the Civil War, and just like then, the leaders of that movement, the reason why that Fort Sumter was fired upon was because those people, the leaders of that rebellion, had basically had to get in front of the movement. That means that there was they didn't have control at the end of the day, and in order to stay in power, they had to stay out front, and they were a victim of their own hubris, thinking, yeah, you get it. Anyway, the point is that the plan that's going on right now is an old plan, but it's not well. Thank goodness, it's not being executed well, which is honestly a boon to civilization and a boon to those that embrace and understand and are committed to the Constitution. So anyway, the point is that I'm in the Chicagoland area, and we're at a critical phase now of the plan. It's clear that there has been a lot of threats of deploying federalizing the National Guard in Illinois and bringing in combat troops to quote police unquote, and we're at a pivot point in this story, and thankfully a lot of us really, adversity brings people together, and there are many different kinds of people that are committed to the Constitution, committed to the idea that all men are created equal, committed to honoring the so much blood that was spilled to get us here. And a lot of us, because we are, this is how it works, because we are constrained by our own, by the law, right? Because we are constrained by the law, and because there's a level of commitment to keep the law in play, it's an asymmetric battlefield, right? Because the lawless, just like what happened in the American Civil War, the lawless don't care. They have already committed to this action. Anyway, the point is that in a very predictable manner, let's back up. So I've been experiencing various types of protests and basically documenting those experiences. So I've got some really interesting footage, and I've got some really interesting photographs, photography. I'm really interested in photography, not for the sake of photography. If you know me, I don't fetishize it. A lot of people do. It's more a medium to share the perspective of the person hitting the shutter, I guess. And just like an art form of Ikebana, it's not really about the objects, it's about the space between them, and how you kind of frame the shot and how you draw the experiencers, the viewer's eyes to what you want. And a lot of it is about reducing detail versus it's framing, I guess. So a loved one who is not in this area and who is exposed and has been, for lack of a better term, I need to find a better way to say I'm saying that too much. Anyway, this dear one of mine, this family member of me and mine, is really starting to, the cracks are starting to appear for this individual in the lies that have been crafted around this individual's family, this individual's life. This individual's experiences and viewpoint is different than mine and has an exceedingly important value. And one of those values is that this individual has really been targeted by for their entire life. They've been crafted I guess. There's indoctrination going on, and the thing about indoctrinating people to an ideal is that you have to attack their ability to trust themselves, meaning that you have to find a way to destabilize the kind of you have to foster magical thinking, because really that's the pivot point for a lot of indoctrination techniques, especially cult techniques. This is pretty normal, right? And just like a cult, it works, right? Because Homo sapiens are what they are. It's not a matter of failure. It's not a matter of being stupid. It's not a matter of any of that. It's the reality is that it doesn't really matter who you are. If you're a Homo sapien and you've been manipulated all your life to a worldview where magical thinking fixes the gaps in the worldview that you're being fed and reality, sky's the limit. And that's a fundamental precept of what's going on. It's a fundamental precept of how how this works. It's the fascist playbook, right? It's you put the population in a mindset where they don't trust their own eyes, they don't trust their own hearts, they don't trust their own instincts. Then you feed them what they want to hear because it makes the world feel better, and you create this kind of cycle where you feed them the reality that makes them you feed them the reality that they want in some ways, and then you begin to craft. And once you've got the addiction, once you've got that kind of indoctrination, then you slowly kind of move towards your goals. Anyway, this individual, like, I am living an interesting life just like the rest of the citizens here in the Chicagoland area. We are, our leadership and they are individual people. A lot of them are kind of fighting back with the notion of an armed occupation force from the federal government, regardless of how you feel, regardless of your opinions, regardless of your magical thinking. This is a pivot point. And so a lot of folks that are pushing back are declaring that that they won't go into or comply. Chicago's an interesting place, and the reason why this place is target, there's a reason why. The occupation forces they started to try this in DC and LA, and they're moving on to Chicago because that's what's going on. A private police force that is the fourth most funded paramilitary group in the world right now. That is directly attached and tied to a regime that is lawless. It has flaunted the Constitution, that has flaunted civil liberty, etc. Under the prepared guise of what's going on. Really, it's very predictable. And in that plan, just like any force, just like any psyops, before you engage on the ground, you prepare it. And so, Chicago has been, so you can't really prepare an invasion. You can't, you got to preserve your base of power when you do this. And in America, that seems to mean that the majority of people, I'm not talking about the operators I'm not talking about those that are not in the know, that's the wrong thing to say. The acolytes. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about citizens who truly have a good heart, but are being manipulated into being complicit in their inaction, being complicit in their thoughts. And so we're at a crossroads here in the Chicagoland area. It has been stated by our state government that this is not acceptable, that we will, that the Illinois state will take every legal avenue to try to stop this, slow this down, discourage this. And so in the news and in the propaganda space, you're seeing this PSYOP war that's been going on for a long time, but now like the battlefield is here in the Chicagoland area. And so predictably, a lot of the propaganda space is now being seeded for those who wish to have a certain worldview, as being seeded with, that's not, I was going to say excuses, but that's not the case, with doubts, right? And again, part of that, just like Hitler did when he, when Poland attacked Germany to start off the Second World War, that PSYOPs, it's kind of, there's a lot of flavors associated with that. And so the first thing, just like they did, just like Goebbels did, was to kind of flood the propagandic market with your base on the lies that allow you to make sure that they question, to give them the space to not realize give them the space for their delusions. Again, the wrong word. Give them the space for the interpretation that the regime wants them to come to. And so anyway, this family member and I, we were having a great discussion, and she sent me, this individual sent me a propaganda video of snippets of Chicagoland individuals, of presumed Chicagoland individuals that had been spliced together, and they were all black people. And the idea was that, oh, well, look at these black people, they want occupation. Look at how terrible Chicago is, right? Because really, at the end of the day, it's a narrative. And I'm not interested in debating, like, the reality is that of course Chicago has crime. I mean, come on. You put two people in a room and you got come on, it's just volume and scale, etc. And the reality is that there have been a lot of, over a long time, a lot of destabilization efforts, a lot of demonization efforts where disenfranchised communities are put in positions and situations where they are incented to be violent because of desperation, because of the reality of their situation. This family member was talking about a little bit, because it was triggered by this propaganda, the individual's opinion matters, and it does. Each one of us, that's what democracy is, right? We take democracy is a system whereby individuals that have disparate worldviews, or disparate individuals that it's a system of compromise. It's a system of an open-ended kind of system that all men are created equal. I may not agree or understand your worldview, but this is the construct upon which you and I have agreed to live, and that agreement was created by centuries and centuries of blood and refinement and ideas and humanistic thought and compassion, etc. So just like the technique the current regime in the U.S. has been employing for, since they started executing this plan, and we can debate when this actually started, it's the same kind of they're seeding, they're confessing beforehand, blaming their supposed enemy, their apparent enemy, for their sins. This pattern of behavior as old as the hills. This is like grifting 101, right? And the reality is that the grifter in chief has been doing this for a long time. I would argue that this regime and the kind of the puppet grifter, master, whatever you want to call this individual, whatever you want to call the president, they're skilled, no question about it. They are skilled at manipulating, and they are skilled at the grift. And part of the grift is that you take the sting out of the accusation, right? So you know that you're going to do something. You blame your opponent for that action. That opponent then has to kind of deflect and create and expend energy to defend themselves. In the meantime, you execute what you claimed your enemy was doing, and then eventually, at the end of the day, when the truth is documented, then you just say, "Oh well, that's crazy. What about, right? What about this? What about that? What about?" In this case, what about these black Chicagoans that appear in this kind of filtered worldview of this video? They want occupation. They want occupation, right? That was really the gist of this, and it's exactly the same playbook as the Lost Cause, the slavery. I mean, I'm sorry. Slaves were better off. They want to be enslaved because this is as old as the American experience itself. It's a function of America's original sin. It just is, and that is. You could debate this all you want, but and we should debate it. To be clear, like. Interpretation of fact and history, it's important for we as a society to examine our past and to learn from it so that this never happens again. We need to break the cycle. And in order to break the cycle, we need to be honest about the reality of a situation that we have created as a community, as a species. This video is pretty egregious, to be honest. Like I've seen, it's literally, sure, you could, now this video is created by a known kind of Patriot Front channel. It's if you look at the metadata, it's obvious where this is coming from, and it is. But again, the proof is difficult to talk about because those individuals that want to use this as a way to preserve their worldview are disincented and programmed to really reject conclusions and objectively based conclusions based upon fact. The fact is that you look at the metadata of this file, of this video, you look at the channel, you look at the websites, you look at the propagandic pieces that are exactly the same as other propagandic outlets, which are documentably tied to the current Russian manipulation of our culture, and you can come to the conclusion that this is a plant. Now, rightly so, when the individual says, "Well, prove it." Okay, I mean that's valid. It's a valid thing. The problem is that the whole place is flooded, right? They've stopped up the drain. The zone is flooded with propagandic shit that these people want to be true. And then the proof of it, just like, again, it's the same, it's another grift technique. The proof of it is kind of questionable to the audience because of their engineered ignorance of the situation, especially when it comes to science and technology based reality. Like, if you don't understand how TCP/IP works, I can't prove to you where this stuff is coming from. If you don't understand what metadata is, it sounds like fucking magic. And my magic is no more or less objectively valid than your magic. It just happens that your magic is a fairy tale. And my proof is objectively verifiable, but that objective verification requires the people that are asking for proof to understand and to agree upon certain a certain understanding of objective reality, I guess. In other words, if I went to a conference for, let's say, I don't know, something that I don't know about. If I went to a cosmetology conference, I wouldn't be able to really, you could skim the topic as being an outsider, but you couldn't really engage at a deeper level in the topic without understanding the kind of scope, scale, and language of that subculture. And the subculture of objective truth and scientific, I wish it weren't a subculture, to be honest. I wish it were ubiquitous. I believe that science is access to truth is a human right. But where was I going? Anyway, the point is that when, and again, I'm not casting aspersions because I am uneducated in many, 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 many things. But in this case, I'm very educated, but if the audience is programmed to instantly reject and try to find some handhold of doubt by the kind of propagandic and the brainwashing, the cult-like brainwashing that occurs in every subculture, to be clear, well, maybe not, I wouldn't use the word cultic in, that's very specific. In this case, it's true, but it's not. I don't want to paint with that big of a brush. The point is that this video is a manipulation of some really deep and dark impulses of the audience of that subculture that it was created to bolster, that it was created to seed the doubt that, oh, well, maybe some Chicagoans want a suspension of the Constitution, and maybe some, especially black people, because black people are fucking weird anyway, and like they're scary and whatever, to a typical, I'm honest, like, set truth free, right? There's a lot of there's generations of misunderstanding that is being used, because really why would this propagandic video just be all black people doing what looks like black things, right? and trying to say, oh, well, these black, they want to be managed, enslaved, whatever, because it makes them feel safer, or and that's really the problem, because these, you know, propaganda works best when there is truth embedded in it, right? That's how it works. And this video is great because it did these caricatures of black people, of black culture, that were snippeted together, and clearly, to me, it's clear that these are actors, mostly because I am really familiar, and I just know humans. I just know humans. These individuals were acting, but I can't, you know, I mean, I don't know what the profiles of these people are. I don't know how much they got paid. I don't know if that is the case, right? I can't prove that. All I know is what the data tells me, that this stuff didn't come from what it purports to come from. And the caricatures of these individuals is really over the, I mean, come on. This is really it felt to me like a riff, like a jazz-like riff off of minstrelsy. That's what the kind of it felt like to me. These performances that were in here. Now, obviously, again, I'm painting with a brush. If they found a Chicagoan to say these things, okay, I get you. You know, but you know, they would have to search, and they would have to search for these people, and again, the problem is that some of the things that they're saying is correct. Crime is a problem, period, everywhere. And we can argue like, oh, you know, obviously this is targeted. Chicago's crime rate is actually going down in various categories, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, the local officials and the regional and the state officials can defend their record. That's their job. I don't really care. I'm not an advocate for that. What I'm an advocate for is holding the people that are our servants, the government, responsible for their actions. And this being, these types of propagandic media is being targeted and is far more effective, in my opinion, than, you know, some of the past, like, especially, I keep referencing Goebbels because it's a very clear example. It's not like that was the last time that it's been used in the world. In fact, there have been like a lot of the oligarchic takeovers. It's the same playbook all over the world. It's just that we as Americans don't pay attention to that stuff, like, because it's outside our borders, and we have been manipulated into ignorance and isolation for a long time, and that's our proclivity. That's, again, giant brushes. And most people really don't understand how diverse America is, and the idea of a melting pot nation is transformative to our species, and it's difficult to pull off. And that's why the Constitution is so important, because, you know, I've worked on a ranch in Montana. I've mended fences in, you know, in rural Colorado, where there's not, you know, there's 10 people in 1,000 acres, less than that. You know, you can, out west, it's the point is that I've experienced that. I've also experienced walking around Caprini Green at night and interacting with individuals whose lives are so bad, And I've interacted with people from Mexico. I've interacted from, Poland, Russia, Ukraine, in various ways. And the point is that don't let, back to my point, and then I'll finish because we're already 35 minutes into this. I cannot convey how repugnant it is to me that the things, the technology, the internet, the ideas that I myself have helped to foster my whole life as part of my profession, but also as part of my belief that information should be universally accessible, that people should be informed. It breaks my heart to see the technology, the algorithmic understanding that we have, like the tools that we have created, are being used so effectively to intravenously feed the people, the good people, the lies, and then they are being manipulated, and then intelligence and intellect and education is demonized to inoculate them from being able to acquire critical thinking. I'm just a simple person. I don't like science. I'd rather do this, I'd rather do that. That's all bullshit. And it's all predicted. And it's all part of the plan. It's part of the indoctrination. It's part of the reason why religion and politics must be separated. Must be. But we're past that right now in the US, where that obviously that separation of church and state has been systematically violated and eroded, and that is on purpose, and there are aspects to that are very personal. And I don't feel compelled to defend the fact that I have objective understanding of the erosion between church and state, and the erosion of accepting that as an ideal. And the reason why that is being eroded, like the strategic and tactical reasons why, I have direct knowledge of some of these things. But like the metadata, it requires a certain degree of language, of understanding of what we're talking about, like being able to use technological or esoteric, I guess, proof, which is why the trust in educational, in the universities, trust in human thought, that's why that is being attacked. That's why over the last several hundred years there's been a concerted effort to demonize the idea of humanistic enlightenment ideas. That's a reason. That's why. And because it's a very useful technique to make people ignorant and to pre-program them to distrust expertise in things that they don't have direct understanding of. It's a systemic thing, right? And so what does all of this mean? What this means is that the Constitution has been violated numerous times by the oligarchy that was the liberal democracy of the United States. We can debate when we cross that line, but the line's been crossed. And now the results is that thankfully these individuals are stupid. Like the enemy is just like the leaders of the last the only armed rebellion, and I hope and I will work to make sure that it stays the only armed rebellion in the United States, the only effective armed rebellion. I lost my train of thought. Anyway, 40 minutes in, just as a piece of news, some of the other kind of plans for this effort are coming to fruition in various aspects. I am very encouraged by the interactions that I had with both lately with some of the protests in the area, but also in engaging in my own subculture this last weekend. It was really good for the heart to interact with people and to remember that I'm not alone, and even when those around me don't really and can't agree or understand, it's okay. I don't in fact, I prefer that you don't agree with me, because then I get to learn, right? Because then together we get to hone what the truth is. You can't sharpen a knife with a stick of butter. But you also gotta gotta agree what a knife is, and you have to agree to a certain set of critical you have to agree on a baseline protocol for communication and mutual understanding. That's all. Obviously, I'm shooting from the cuff. That's what all of this is about. But anyway, it's going to be an interesting time. I pray that just like the successful populist movements of the past, that violence is not part of this. Our enemies are trying to make it violent because of the playbook, which will give them an excuse to go the next step, which will allow them to create more media propaganda so that those good individuals out there that are being duped have another reason to kind of look the other way. I mean, it's the same playbook, right? And we as Americans cannot allow it, meaning that they're the ones in power. At the end of the day, you got to stand up for the Constitution, and you got to stand up for the law. And that means that you have to do it in accordance with the law as you step onto this asymmetric battlefield. You have to be you have to be willing to take it. And I hope that the efforts that have been made to kind of declare you don't want to take this step, I hope those are effective. I hope that that this threat backs down. I hope that I hope that America can be restored. And I have faith that that restoration will be ultimately very beneficial for our species. We are the oldest contiguously operational, our Constitution is the oldest Constitution that is still, theoretically at this point, the law of the governance of a nation. Like we're the oldest. There are problems with our Constitution. There are. course there are. I mean, what system of anything can you go this long without an update? Right? I mean, really. We can't keep a computer running for more than 10 minutes, it seems, without needing an update, much less this fundamental construct of how humans interact in a positive way without oligarchy, with freedom. But that's for another day. Right now, we need to make, as citizens, we have to decide, like, where is the line? The line in this case is the threat of armed troops that come from here and also that come from a different state. Like the threat of bringing the federalized Texas National Guard to occupy this city. This is a wet dream since the 1800s. Like study your history. Yeah. Anyway, it's going to be an interesting day. Hopefully that it's going to be wonderful, and we must take joy and community and love where we can. And so today is not the day, as far as I know, where this trigger gets pulled. And so I will enjoy my life, and I will move forward with my goals. And part of that is sharing the reality of what it is like to be a person like me, living this is my temporal reality. This is my temporal truth. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. We'll talk to you later.